This I Believe is I love that we get to hear where different people in the congregation come from in terms of their journey to faith. And that varies so much every time I listen to the This I Believe. I learn something new, not only about the individuals that are speaking, but also about how each of us has our own unique path of getting here. So we're going to start with Catherine, who is going to share her This I Believe.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This was more difficult than I thought it would be. Although I'm up here quite a bit. How do you consolidate a life that was a real circuitous journey from, birth to here? So I, changed and evolved and, taken on other people's beliefs and cultural beliefs and found my own finally. Yet there's a thread that weaves throughout my existence, sometimes consciously and sometimes unconsciously. And I call it the thread of light. My perception can only be seen as a story among all of your stories. I believe now that we live simultaneously on many levels: physical, emotional, spiritual. Somewhat like Hermann Hesse's glass bead game. His book about multi-dimensional consciousness. He's one of my all-time favorite authors, and that book especially. Thank goodness there are signposts along the way, sort of, for all of us, if we look at them. So my first recollection was the unlikely, some would say, Catholic Church and the Sisters of St. Agnes. Yeah. Mass 6 days a week, catechism 5 days a week. Some of you know the drill. Of course, there's a lot of disparaging things one may say about the Catholic Church, but there was a signpost when the nun said, "We are all cells in the mystical body of Christ." Now, we were little kids, so we didn't quite understand it, and I think she was trying to get us to reach into our consciousness, and that did it for me. I hung on to that like a life raft. I belonged. I was part of something infinite. Not only part of, but he, with a capital H, lived in me, and I lived in him. Now, the importance of this to me probably says more of the disconnection in my family of origin than the nun's teaching, but it was my first awareness of the unity of all there is. An idea was forming in me, and it was powerful. I understood it on a level that was bigger than I was. I felt it. This opened a portal for me. A love of rituals, prayer, service to others, and the precepts of a spiritual life that live in me still today. Then, a popular book on reincarnation fell into my hands when I was 13. The idea that a huge population in the world did not believe in the fiery hell for arbitrary infractions was astounding. And the karmic idea of cause and effect that was somehow within my personal responsibility felt like truth that was more humane. So I embraced that. I included that in my life. My father died suddenly when I was 16, and I left home a week later. I journeyed to the far country of the prodigal son parable for a long time. The still small voice was still whispering, but faintly. However, the psychedelic experience seemed real, bursting me through to higher realms, seeing God or something, and then chasing that or something. I was a voracious reader always, My parents that's about what they did give me, this love of reading and things. Attempting to guide myself through the darkness, I found Edward Casey, the channeled Seth materials, Hinduism, Buddhism, Rosicrucians, Hildegard von Bingen, St. John of the Cross, White Wiccan magic, and on and on and on. I think I was trying to reassure myself that I was still connected to that thread of light somehow. And I feel Spirit was holding me. And, throwing me a lifeline the only way I could accept, and through knowledge. Since my heart was fairly closed from loss and an uncertain journey. Real healing experiences did start happening, too much to go into, but the thread of light got stronger. Fast forward to my mid-30s, I moved to a community focused on psychological work. This step was essential. I believe in the necessity of healing and integrating emotional trauma through psychological inquiry. Otherwise, we can get lost in that spiritual bypassing. We can try to live in this realm up here when our life down here is not working. We're incarnated here for a reason, we wouldn't be here. We're incarnated for a reason. And these experiences are essential to understand and grow through. I spent 7 years immersed in all the teachings available to me at this place, and I was cracked open and altered forever. I felt expanded and passionate about the workings of my mind. But with all the great bursts of power, there seems to be the energetic opposite, the ebb and flow of life that we all experience. I saw abuses of power and position, and I ultimately left disillusioned. I questioned everything. Where was my thread of light or truth? A shaman friend said to me, if you don't know what to do with yourself, help the next person to you that needs help. In other words, stop being so self-involved. So I did. I found people and organizations that I could help through. Another signpost was coming up, however. In 2005, my friends encouraged me to attend a Science of Mind church. I was familiar with Unity, which was similar, so I went. The first time I heard the minister speak, my mind stilled. I don't have words to describe it, but I knew I found my home. The minister's taught spiritual information material through the lens of quantum physics, and I spent the next 10 years studying with him and others at the Center of Spiritual Awakening. It had and still has all the right ingredients for me. I pursued becoming a minister and a master's in religious studies through these teachings, and this, I believe, one unconditionally loving, creative life force permeates every living being, and it's a living consciousness that we swim in and we're never separated from. It's a felt experience. God, or whatever one wants to call it, is a felt experience, and I have made what some would call the longest journey from my head to my heart. All the knowledge I craved was just the signpost to my awakened heart. So from the mystical body of Christ with the nuns to the cosmic, unconditionally loving consciousness of the holy universe that loves me and you, I am at your service, and I am grateful. Thank you.
Wow.
I'm going to hide back here because I know Nick is coming up next. Catherine, that was beautiful. I didn't know all that about you. Our next speaker is Nick, and he's going to be sharing his journey of how he got here from a spiritual perspective. So let's all welcome Nick.
Okay,
first things first, I'm gonna cry. So just ignore it. It's just because I'm very, very grateful about where I am in my life now. A lot has changed. Okay, let's see if I can get through this. I grew up with a Star Wars, the Force kind of thing. And the reason was is because my mom was raised by some very fundamental Christians, and they used to beat her because she was red hair and left-handed. So they thought the devil was in her all the time. And anyway, so I didn't have a usual religious background at all. But the Force was something I could understand and grasp. And, you know, it's everywhere, it's inside of us, it's, you know, all around us, and that made sense to me. My childhood was not very good either. Despite my mom's challenges, she was an alcoholic. My father was abusive. And I had a lot of psychological problems when I was a kid. I had to go to a boarding school for troubled teens, and sorry. Oh, trust me, I brought some.
We might need that.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna let this be up there anyway.
Okay. And so I went through a lot of therapy. I went to a lot of 12-step meetings, and I learned a lot about how to do my own therapy and processing. And so having a Force as a higher power really helped me. But I really wanted something more than that. I did a lot of healing, but I needed a relationship. I needed a relationship with something. And I was in a lot of homeless situations in my young life. Being on SSI does not give you enough money to have a house and food at the same time. And I was on SSI because I was disabled, and I was categorized as manic depressive, and that's how I got on SSI. And I was staying with a guy that was a Bible preacher, and he was kind of a militia type person, and he was into conspiracies and UFOs and stuff like that. And I was staying on his ranch. On his ranch, we found 4 ley lines, energy lines, that crisscrossed each other and made a little box, a tetrahedron box on the property. And we found that it had healing properties. So I went into that little shape, and I said, you know, if God exists, it should be able to talk to me. It should be able to connect. Well, anyway, it did. I don't know how many of you know of Neil Donald Walsh's books, but I didn't read them yet, but I was having conversations with God just like he was. And that really helped me a lot, because it helped me understand reality, it helped me understand spirit. And so I was still in a situation where I couldn't really, you know, live well. And so I said, okay, God, you gotta help me out here and make things happen for me. And because I don't know how, I don't have the money to do that. So I met my wife, and she decided that she was going to take me on and help me out. We fought for about 4 or 5 years because I was trying to teach her everything that I learned. hard time accepting a lot of it. But I needed a partner that understood where I was coming from. And eventually she worked on her issues, her personal issues, and we started getting along. Now we have this wonderful life, you know. I'm financially stable, and I feel emotionally stable. Crying not counted. And I have been really grateful for my conversations with God. So now I'm trying to give back, and trying to give back to the universe. And so I like to try and help people with their emotions, and that's what my group is about. And I want to, you know, do things for the community and that sort of thing, because I'm just really, really grateful that that I went through this trial to get to this point. So I'm probably not going to film my whole time. I'm pretty much done here. See if I missed anything. No, I think that God is, for me, I needed it to be personal. I needed it to be one-on-one. And so, I know not everybody here believes in God, but if you're gonna have a God, you gotta have one that's all about unconditional love. You know, I think that's the way to go. And so with or without God, unconditional love, I think, is the most important thing that we can share and do with each other. And so I think that's it. Sorry I cried, but
Sorry.
all right, thanks.
Thank you.